Okay, we are live.
No, we are.
We are indeed, Ben. Welcome, guys. Week 11 of coffee and cricket lockdown. The original pioneers, I will add, of coffee and cricket. I've seen some sort of pretenders out there, coaching cafes, coaching beans, coffee beans, tea and cricket chat. But this is the original coffee and
beans
cricket
a cup.
chat. So, correct. This is the original coffee and cricket chat. So, look, guys, thanks for joining us. With us today, we have Mr. Mark Costin. I will introduce Mark briefly. Mark has coached. I've coached with Mark now for 4 or 5 years, and through the ECB pathway, etc. Mark also holds a cricket coaching job in a school, which I'll tell you about in a minute, and also he is the one of the coaches for Middlesex age groups with the Wicketkeepers. So, Costo, welcome today, mate. Really good to have you on board. Is that a fair introduction? Is that about right?
Yeah, spot on. Morning, everyone. Morning.
Try to include everything, mate, on your sort of resume / CV. Guys, also joining us, Ben, this morning. Ben, good to see you, mate. You well?
Yeah, very good. Very good. I just took a sip of the coffee and forgot how hot it was.
Really? That's
it burned my tongue.
Can easily happen. Easily happen. Guys, lots of updates over the last week, etc. But before we get into all that, Costo, just give us a bit of a rundown from lockdown with inside your family, how it's been looking, and what cricket's been going on for you, and sort of your take on things, really, mate.
So my main job in school, we obviously went into lockdown the same time as everyone else, and the school closed, and we were working remotely. So I was in charge of running the cricket program remotely, and so that, in short, meant that I was filming drills and things, filming activities in my garden, uploading them onto our online classroom, and then setting pupils and players' work. They would send either photos or videos back to me, and I'd give them feedback. So that was sort of how the school stuff went a lot, and that was be alongside PE lessons. We then school then moved to doing everything live. So instead of pre-recording stuff, it then went to live. Everything had to be live, which presented a bit of a challenge for me. My wife works full time, and we've got a 1-year-old, so we struggled, and our Wi-Fi is not very good.
Straightforward dynamics, mate.
Yeah, so we were homeschooling and both trying to work full time to a timetable rather than being able to do things when we might be available to do them. I found it a challenge, and school offered me furlough. So I got furloughed in May from school, and then cricket-wise, so I'm involved with Middlesex with the Wicketkeepers there and the age groups. So we've tried to run a program alongside lockdown. Obviously, not able to contact anyone in person, but we were running weekly squad training sessions. So I'd have my group of Wicketkeepers, and I'd set them similar to what I was doing for school. Really, is I'd do a set of drills on video, and they'd spend the week doing them, and then we'd meet up on a Sunday and talk it through and do some S&C together. That then progressed into squad parts. So I would participate in the under 17s, the under 15s, and so on, and they'd be led by their coach, doing like some theory type stuff. So we'd watch bits from World Cup games and split off into breakout rooms on Zoom and have little analytical discussions, and then come back and present to the bigger group, and then there'd be some skill challenges, and the S&C coach would be in these meetings, and they'd do like a 20-minute S&C thing. So I've been involved with that with Middlesex, and then club cricket. I still play, and we've been training as best we can. So it started off as one-to-ones, didn't it? We've got a coach at our club who I've had a few one-to-ones with, and
nice. Then hitting them well.
Well, frustratingly, all right, yeah. Feels
They all count, mate.
It's really frustrating, isn't it? I'm at that point where I just feel like I'm ready to play and want them to count for something. So we've been back sort of squad training in our groups of 6 for a few weeks now, just waiting for the green light. I think everything's ready to go at the club, and just waiting like everyone else is to actually play a game of cricket. So that's where I am. I've tried to keep fit, done a lot of running, and done a lot of wicket keeping stuff personally in my garden, and trying to keep ticking over so that when we do play, I can play, and when we get back to coaching, that the players at Middlesex are able to perform to some level as well.
Absolutely, mate. I mean, I feel worth saying here. I feel slightly outnumbered, actually, being the only non-wicket keeper. But it's probably safe to say I'm probably the freshest smelling out of the 3 with my perception of keepers. But no, just for the record, Mark is quite a.
It's a bit unfair on Mark, that.
I think Mark's quite a cleanly. His cleanliness is quite good for a keeper, Ben, actually. So anyway, moving on. We won't sort of dissect any. We don't dissect any more people's keeping cleanliness. Anyway, on that note, so Costin, what is your current take on where we're at? It's been an interesting journey that we have been taken through with the Boris's updates and the ECB updates that have followed. What's your take on all this? We've had different viewpoints. We've tried to be balanced throughout everything. So I'll be interested to know how you sort of perceive the situation, mate.
I'll try to be really balanced.
No, please do. I'll have to balance it out for you if you want. Say how you see it.
I've worked for the ECB, and I'd quite like to work for the ECB again in the future, possibly. So don't want to be too critical, but no, I'm joking. I think it's really difficult, isn't it? And I think there's been a bit of a disconnect clearly between DCMS, the Department for Culture, Media and Sport, and ECB. I personally just can't get my head around why cricket is not being played. It seems to tick all the right boxes. I don't see why you can't shine the ball with hand sanitizer or this Caliva stuff that has come onto the market. It just seems to lend itself so well. And I think the mental health side of the hundreds of thousands of people that benefit from playing non-contact sport, I really think we should be playing. I also think the ECB probably think that as well. It sounds like their finger was on the trigger to press go and start cricket from tomorrow. And then Boris said what he said, how informed Boris was, how much he was supposed to say that. The rumour is that DCMS had signed it off, and there was a disconnect between Boris and DCMS. So, and then obviously ECB, and then I think ECB sent a holding email last night, didn't they? Where I think they've sort of thrown the government a bit. ECB have obviously copped a lot of flack, and I think their email last night is saying, right, guys, all that flack that you're giving us, can you now direct it at government? Because we presented on Monday our case to open on the 4th, to play cricket on the 4th. It's been with them for a week. When we all know they can't sign, ECB can't sign anything off. They have to present to DCMS, and DCMS then give them the thumbs up.
You do get the impression they've just the government have just thrown a new thing out there, a regulation or what have you, and then the ECB have been. It appears from the outside, and I say outside a little bit on the inside from conversations I've had, but it does appear that what you say, Mark, is spot on, which is the communication lines between the two just seem to be interesting, to say the least. And I think that it's very easy, isn't it, to point the finger at the ECB. And look, there are things that I believe that could have been done swiftly. You know, the pathway back to playing. As I've said a couple of times, if we're having a balanced view here, I do not envy the ECB's job. They are a governing body of many thousands. You know, one of the second biggest sport in the country, but nowhere near as well funded as the main sport in the country, obviously being football. It's a tough job. I think that the flip side to this is that the LTA, the RFU, and the FA. So if you look at the RFU and the FA, it's not even, they're not even in season. They're not even in season, and they were able to get out at least a pathway of how we get out of this, to at least send the right message out to the participants of the sport. I think that the hardest thing is, I know that's since come from the ECB, I get that, but I felt that the predictable return phase to cricket that they released could have come out earlier, and that would have gone down a lot better.
The other side to it as well is, if you look at golf, have been a great example of this, and obviously it's easier for them because there's no ball transmission, if you want to call it that.
There's not if you hack it into the edge, mate.
Yeah, that's ball swapping. Every time there's been a government announcement, golf have had their next step ready. It's almost seemed like they've been a bit ahead of the game. And then the next day, golf course is open. You can play with members of your household, or you can play in a 4-ball now, whatever. And it has been easier for them because they haven't had to change as much. But I feel like with the one-to-one coaching and the small groups of 6, the government said you can now meet up in a group of 6 to exercise, and you can now meet one person from outside a household. Then that surely is the point when the ECB just go, yep, do what the government have said, rather than creating an 11-page document on how to do a one-to-one safely.
It was the most unbelievable bit like that was when the government said you could meet up to do sport in groups of 6, and ECB released that same thing saying that you can do cricket in groups of 6 a week later, didn't they? I think that's the bit that people find frustrating. And I'm sure we're all the same. It's frustrating now that there was this announcement about the 4th, and there's been like silence from ECB. You just want to, even if it's to say, guys, we're on it. Today we asked DCMS this. Today we asked DCMS that. Just it would sort of keep the wolves from the door of ECB a bit, I guess. But I think
the ECB have done fantastic things for English cricket and the recreational game, and there's no doubt about it. The money they've fed down to women's cricket, to junior cricket, to local cricket, to disability cricket, which I worked in with yourself, Mark, and also Ben. The point is that the ECB, let's not get away from the fact they have done and do some tremendous work, and I think that that definitely needs highlighting with all this. Absolutely. I think I'm struggling to get past. So, for example, last night, coached one of the first senior sessions over at one of the clubs we work with, Bowden Cricket Club. One of the young lads was about to walk in the net, and I had to say to him, H, you can't go in there, mate. There's already 5 in there. And as the coach, I'm there also monitoring. At the same time, I looked at one of the ground staff who was there, and I said, I'm saying this, yet Saturday lunchtime, there's going to be 40 people piling into a pub beer garden. And that's where I just looked last night and I thought,
that's why I've been amused.
Whatever barriers we're putting up, or whatever reasons, and I get the legislation, I get the reasons, and we've tried to be balanced throughout all this, and I will continue to try and portray we are independent as a business from anybody, but we also want to be seen as balanced. But last night it hit me, Costo, and I thought something just isn't right here. Like, if I'm saying to a young kid, he can't go and bowl in that net because of numbers, that, H, if you want to queue up for a can of pop and crisps in a line of 40 people on Saturday, crack on.
I
don't know, maybe I'm seeing it wrong. I don't know.
It's hard to compare it to people who maybe aren't following the guidelines. You want to compare it to what they are allowing, and what they are allowing. I've heard the comparison with basketball a number of times.
5v5, you're allowed 5v5 basketball or something. Is that right?
I'm not 100% sure on what's allowed and what isn't allowed.
I get a lot of transmission in that, isn't there? The ball.
It's a ball passing
game.
Doesn't
lend itself to being white. Doesn't lend itself
to be honest, Costo,
different players.
Costo, at this point as well, Ben, I'm sorry, mate, but I detest the sport. So, as this is my coffee and cricket morning,
we're not talking about basketball
about this anymore. So that's it.
Don't like basketball.
I rarely pull that line out, but we're not going to talk about basketball. It doesn't basketball for me doesn't warrant any time to talk about. Yes, Costin.
There's two things that I've got found annoying. One is the tennis thing. So a month ago, 6 weeks ago, tennis and golf were allowed, weren't they? And obviously cricket still wasn't. Now, I played a bit of tennis as a kid, and I think like everybody else, I've been like just exercising at home, and I was desperate to do some exercise that involved coordination. So I looked into booking courts to go and play a game with my wife, and actually the local tennis club to me was like really cheap annual membership, and then you can obviously play when you like. So I just joined the club, and I've been going down there like twice a week playing tennis. Like I've been playing doubles, sharing balls for 6 weeks now. Like we just turn up, we just play a game of tennis. Now that ball I can't wipe a tennis ball clean every time I touch it. Like it's fluffy, it doesn't lend itself to that. But I can go to that, and then the next day go to cricket training, and I have to be like 2 nets away from the next person. But I could play doubles against you guys and be stood next to you at the net, or I could be like literally the opposite side of the net. Whereas when you bat in the next net to someone, you're like 4 meters away. You can't do it. So I found that contradictory. And then the announcement this week, tomorrow, like my clubhouse at Berkhamsted opens as a bar and a restaurant. So I can go down tomorrow. There can be whatever 15 of us in the bar, but we can't have 15 people out on the field. It just like seems like really bizarre. And I get it's economics, isn't it? It's the economy. Opening bars spends money, gets the economy going. But it's contradictory medically.
Gentlemen, moving on from this now. Did any of you get a chance to look at the intra ECB England game this week between the two squads?
Bits.
I'll throw out there, I am just so pleased Keaton Jennings didn't push on past 20, because if he'd have got 100, imagine having to pick him again. Anyway, I got
a good stat for you. Matthew Boyce used to play for Bartleby United Cricket Club. That was his main appearance, as far as I'm aware. Played for Leicester for a bit as well.
Career highlight.
I believe he's got a higher first-class average than Keaton Jennings. Those listening, feel free to check that. But I think
surprisingly low, isn't it, Jennings?
I think Jennings is 33 and Boyce is 34.
I think that on that, I mean, I don't know if you saw the scorecard, but I know that Dan Lawrence, I think it is, got 50 odd, which obviously he's rated really highly. We spoke about Lawrence a couple of weeks ago when they announced the squads, so I think he might have staked a claim. Bracey, Ben, tell us a bit about Bracey, because you've worked with him, haven't you, when he was at Loughborough University?
Yeah. So he was at Loughborough University. I was helping out with the MCCU there. I think it's really exciting, really, looking at a player like that, because he's come through that university system, which they're now changing. But someone who proves that you don't necessarily have to go through the academy, the second team, the first team at a county in that order at a very young age to then progress. He's done a lot of his development, obviously through playing cricket at university and then the first team at Gloucestershire, and then performances have led him to where he is now. And it looks like a very solid player. Would he get 70 what? 75 maybe?
No, I think
spent a lot of time there as well.
80 wasn't it? 80
off 180 balls maybe, something like that.
Yeah.
So he's probably the sort of player that we're looking for, someone who can occupy the crease.
Keeper and bat.
Yeah, good keeper. I mean, from a personal point of view, I'd love to see him play, but I don't know what other people think about him really.
Will he be able to bat? He bats 3 for Gloucester, doesn't he? Will he be able to bat 3 and keep forever, or does he end up as a batter?
I think that's an interesting question, isn't it? Because if you look at, is it Alex Stewart that was similar, going back to the 90s, but he had a really good record opening the batting, but when he opened the batting, they didn't want him to keep. But I if you've got someone who bats 3 and bowls great medium pace, or Jacques Callis or someone like that, you don't stop them batting at 3.
You don't want him falling into a Jonny Bairstow trap, so you don't want to sort of Bairstow grew up batting at 3 or 4 for Yorkshire, and he batted in a way that he looked to bat all day, and bat at a nice tempo. But I think that when you look at someone like Bairstow, he's been groomed almost to fulfil a number 7 role, 6 role for England, where you are expected to come in at current England side 50 for 5, but ideally 250, 300 for 5, and then you can push on. So I think that we've just got to be careful, haven't we, that the keeper batter doesn't fall into the trap of, you know,
if he's got the skill set to bat at 3 and keep wicket, like, I'd let him do it if he's going to perform. It needs to be performance driven, doesn't it, rather than fitting a certain mould that we all like to see a team with a wicketkeeper who bats between 5 and 7 and has a bit of flair.
I'm not sure there's a place for him as a keeper, Ben, at the moment. I think with the 3 guys there are, I'm not sure that's adding to England's.
Well, we don't know, do we? I mean, I don't think we've seen enough of him.
No, but what I mean is, at the moment, you've got proven Test keepers, mate, in that squad. Is what I'm saying. So I don't think.
But I mean, if your argument's going to be that you want to pick the best keeper, then it's not Butler or Bairstow, is it?
Well, I don't know, Costa. What do you think on that?
Well, it's Folkes, isn't it?
Ben Folkes is the best keeper, yeah, definitely. And with Folkes, because he's keeping
he's got 100 as well.
He's keeping so good. His batting, he often just gets talked about as like the keeper's pick.
Yeah.
His first class stats for his batting is really good. He averages in the 40s. If he wasn't a keeper, he'd be someone you'd be talking about picking for England as a batter. So I don't think with Folkes it's a choice between best keeper or batter. I think he's arguably the best batter of the keepers. He just bats maybe not in the same style as Butler and Folkes. He's not quite such a hitter out of the park, but he's definitely the best keeper. I think it probably Folkes, Butler, Bairstow of the sort of current England.
I'm a believer that England side is a better side when Bairstow's in it. I really do. I think he's got the ability, like Pryor, to change and affect games in different ways. And I do think, chaps, and I've got, we've all been through this ourselves, I guess, as batters, but if you are batting at 7, I believe you bat to fill that mould. Whereas if I think that if you and the problem is at Test cricket you can't say to someone, right, go and have a year or a season of batting at 3. But I do honestly believe that if Bairstow batted at 3 or 4, he would be more productive than a Joe Denley over a season, because I think he would bat the way that situation would suit. I think
he's an incredible talent as a batter, isn't he?
I just think he's so adaptable, but I think he's almost fulfilling an expectation, like you say, Mark, of how he should play as a keeper batter. Whereas the Bairstow growing up that got him into the England side was a fluent stroke player, wasn't it? Who could occupy the crease and bat for long periods. Not slowly, crumbs by no means, but it's an interesting debate, isn't it, gentlemen? Anything else to come out of that game? I think Overton got 2 for, didn't he?
Yeah, there was a good moment where you had, I think, Overton bowling at Leach and Best or something, and it was an all Somerset game.
All Somerset, yeah, and with Lewis Gregory fielding at point.
Yeah.
He's another one we spoke about.
When they've been taking wickets, have they been touching elbows? Is that?
Yeah.
Did I see that right? Touching elbow, one of them.
Elbows.
Elbow bump.
With a new step, isn't it, for cricket?
Interesting. Gents, so really, sort of looking at the Test series coming up, I've seen that Pakistan have replaced the 9 COVID players, was it, that were positive in their squad for the England.
You're joking.
No, for the England series. So they had their 9. Whereas the West Indies squad pulled through, didn't they? They had no cases. I suppose you could argue, picking from different islands, etc. It's probably a bit more manageable. But yeah, I think a third of the Pakistan touring party were COVID positive, weren't they? So they've replaced them. So the problem with that is that it's like the West Indies series. If it's competitive, people want to see it, don't they? And I think the current West Indies side is getting more competitive in English conditions, arguably. But the last thing you want is an understrength Pakistan side coming over to England. The cricket we've waited for months.
Don't say that, mate. We'll lose.
No, I know, Ben, but it comes back to the argument, doesn't it? Do you want to play Mickey Mouse cricket or do you want to play proper cricket? And I don't know. I just hope that it doesn't devalue that too much. The fact that they've had a third of the granted squad, but a third of the squad almost not able to travel. So it'll be interesting to see.
Got a couple of questions, I think. Michael O'Connor said, Ben, is that a pint of Guinness at this time in the morning? No, Mike. It was an Americano and it's now gone. I'm not doing a Piers Morgan. Piers Morgan was drinking a pint, wasn't he, at 6:30 the other morning? Yeah, and we got another one. Hang on, I think. What do you think about the cricket match taking place in Leicester last week with a few hundred people watching it? That was at Spinney Hill, next to the police station, by the way, who did nothing about it, of course.
I saw this. I saw the video of that.
The
headlines made it out to be worse than it actually looked on the video. The headlines made it out like there was going to be a massive crowd.
Yeah. No, I think there were just people walking around the park.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't. It was actually double the county championship crowd you get down Grace.
I think it's actually true, unfortunately.
Look, gents, I didn't really see much of that. I mean, it's not, again, propaganda like that. You don't know when it was filmed, who filmed it, what the date was, etc.
Yeah,
it can create problems, looking at things. I wouldn't say it was the most reliable video that was passing around, but again, Andrew, my line throughout this has been anything that's not abiding to the lockdown rules and the government guidelines, I'm disapproving of, and that's simple.
Well, it's very simple, isn't it? Like if that was the case because the video came out on Sunday night, didn't it? If it was the case that they were playing a game of cricket with 100 people watching or whatever, it makes a bit of a mockery of the fact that we've closed down all our services for months, and cricketers around the country haven't played just for a load of people to walk out in a park and completely ignore it next to a police station.
But again, we don't know the ins and outs of this. So
no, of course.
It's a video that circulated on the internet, which obviously someone who's watched our cricket coffee morning has seen. As I said, it's not something that necessarily. I don't think any of us are sort of qualified on that to
without witnessing it.
No, I guess all I'm saying is that, look, anything that's not abiding by what regulations and guidelines that have been given, it ain't good, is it? And that's sort of the approach that we've tried to take throughout everything. However, Mark, how are you looking after your balls? Your vectors of diseases. Sorry.
My vectors.
How are you? Balls are now known as. How are your vectors? Do you reckon in tennis they shout new vectors, please?
New vectors, please. Well, they're not vector disease in tennis, are they? Even though they're fluffier and more stuff definitely sticks to them. But
of course.
I mean, technically, though, you could play tennis without sharing balls, couldn't you?
Yeah. Well, when they first,
it would be weird.
Yeah, when they first allowed tennis, you had to take your own balls and you weren't allowed to serve. So you had to just have it on your racket, flick it up like a frying pan, hit it over, and you had to only touch your own. And then a week later, they sacked that off and said, "Do what you like." So I take my own. I take a ball to training, have some hand sanitizer spray, and use that at the start and finish. And then the coach has put other hand sanitizer sprays at the end of each activity, like if it's a net there, if it's fielding drill or S&C drill, he has them around. And so like if I've got my keeping gloves on, I don't know how good it is for them, but everyone's spraying their hands before they go and do a fielding drill, and I go and spray my inners, or I spray the palm of the keeping gloves. And my first thought was, is this going to ruin my gloves? But yeah, so that's it. And everyone's being pretty good about it. The only thing that I've seen a bit of maybe fatigue is with batters in the nets throwing the ball back. So that seems to have crept in a bit, rather than hitting it back. But if you're spraying your gloves and stuff like that, I don't know what you guys have seen with that.
No, you throughout all of it, you do as much as you can possibly do. I think that the whole idea of this is that it requires people to buy into what we're trying to create. The way I see it is you talk about team cultures and team dynamics. Well, you've effectively had these constraints put on you, haven't you, as a coach or a player, and you've got to abide by them. And it's how well people can commit to doing that and adapt to doing that. And the more people do the right things, hopefully the sooner all this mess goes away. I think it's as simple as that.
You do your best. Don't you?
You do as much as you can, and that's all you can do. I don't know if you chaps have seen, but obviously Curran's currently awaiting tests for coronavirus, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean,
sickness and diarrhea. I mean, the graphic detail we were given from the report of that. I don't know if you chaps saw it. It was quite amusing.
It's the only times where it would ever be acceptable to give. Normally, they just say he's unwell.
He's got a bug
Wouldn't
or
they?
something. Or,
They just say he's got a bug, but now everyone's like, "Oh, it might be coronavirus. Tell us what symptoms he's got."
Yeah.
I mean, hopefully he's all right. And it's a bit
Uncontrollable sickness and projectile diarrhea. I think it said something like that. It was like it could not have got any more graphic for someone who's just checking on BBC Sport to catch up on the cricket. It was interesting. Quite some interesting threads on that actually. Someone put, I think you could have just told us he was unwell. ... It was quite an amusing reply.
I think the whole cricket world's hoping he doesn't have corona, aren't they?
Well, I mean, again, it's a big talking point.
Right off the Test match, wouldn't it?
We've only just got round to it, but where does that leave things if he tests positive?
Well, they've talked about COVID subs, haven't they? So I guess if he has got it, he just subs out. He's not.
What about
that's mid-match? So
what about track and trace? They're going to track and trace the entire squad and all the coaching staff as well. And have to COVID sub the entire squad.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because again, it's that idea of if you are, should you be exempt from any of the rules and regs if you're in the spotlight? So the point is that we're currently told if someone you've come into contact with, so if I've been sharing a dressing room next to Sam Curran or, elbow bumped Sam Curran, for example, and Sam Curran has the coronavirus, then surely following government guidelines that, Stuart Broad should then be isolated for 7 days.
You can isolate, don't you?
Is that not? Are the players exempt from that?
Or does that change because they'll get tested? So if you get it and your other half then has to isolate, that's because you haven't been tested, isn't it? She hasn't been tested. So does it change if Sam Curran's got it, then Stuart Broad gets tested?
I thought, chaps, that to prevent it spreading, i.e. on your way to getting a test or whoever's, if you know that you've been into contact with someone, I thought it was just stay at home. I might be wrong on that.
I think Mark has a point though. If the squad's being tested every couple of days, then they'll be tested, and if they don't have it, then they'll just carry on as normal and they won't have to replace those players. And if they do, then they'll have to replace the players. I think that's...
Do you know what?
Probably
we're hoping, Ben, it could have just been like a dodgy kebab or something like that.
Yeah, you hope. Yeah.
I can't imagine that kebab's part of Sam Curran's diet.
No. But interestingly, Keith Curl celebrated Northampton's promotion, I believe, with a kebab. That was on Football Focus the other day. I thought you'd enjoy that. So interesting, guys. Really, it's obviously an interesting week ahead for everybody. Next guidelines might be coming out whenever. We're unsure. Imminently, I believe. The only other thing that's probably worth mentioning today, which is the elephant in the room potentially, is the obvious, which is the current Leicester lockdown.
Oh, yeah.
It's almost that obvious, and we've spent that much time talking about it. Well, we have Mark where we're based. I know, Mark, you're a bit further south than us, but...
You guys both outside of it, are you? You're not...
Yeah, we're out of the area. We're currently outside of the zone or the area, whatever you want to call it, the marked area.
I think I'm pretty fortunate, really, as well, because obviously playing my club cricket at Geddington. Currently, we're still looking at going ahead and playing some club cricket this year. I think that all the teams in the Leicestershire area are going to be struggling unless they're setting up their own out of Leicester leagues. I know we've spoken about a Rutland league before, like the Breakaway league. But I don't think there'll be much cricket played in Leicester, especially after this, because I'm sure they'll have a cooling off period after this 2-week lockdown as well.
Well, it'll just take them back a phase, won't it?
I think so. I think the league were due to have a meeting this week on Wednesday night, I think, where they're hopefully going to announce something positive. And I think that's obviously been thrown up in the air a little bit. But I think that, so from our side, we put an announcement out there this week that any current jobs we do or clubs we work with within the zone or customers will be on hold for now. And basically, again, Mark, we're just relying on people to, the clubs we work with are identifying through postcode checks where their players live, etc. The majority of clubs, I believe, have been pretty good at that. I did hear whispers of one club, not a club that we work with actually, whose players were kicking off a little bit because the club said you're not allowed to travel to the club in question, who were based in the city, but the club was out of the city. And I just think, well, that's why we're in this mess, because guys are going. But we've been pretty fortunate. We've had 2 bookings that have people that have tried to book in since the lockdown from affected areas, and just had to politely say, look, it's not happening. You should know better ideally, but we can't do it. But no, it's not really affecting us massively, mate, in the sense of, again, it just relies on people to be sensible. We had the chat earlier off air, me and Ben did this morning about, just making sure that we do all we can to make this work. And it relies on your staff to be vigilant. It relies on your customers to abide by the rules. And I think if we do that, then we'll be okay. But we've not been too affected. I think for league cricket, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because I don't think you can, whilst the Leicester sheer and the surrounding area are probably ready to get going, I find it very difficult to sort of say, you can only play cricket in these zones and not that zone. So I think it will just end up a complete delay for everybody because of this.
You don't think they'll go regional, just say, right, Leicester?
Can't do, mate, because I think in a city, imagine saying to a couple of inner city clubs, now you can't play. Well, the next Saturday they'll be turning out for another club.
Yeah, true.
Their players might transfer teams, and I think that you've got to be really careful at how it goes, because then you defeat the whole object. And where are the umpires travelling from, for example? Do you have to travel through the city to get to one of the grounds, or do you travel around? And I think it's just a complete. I can't see it happening until this Leicester lockdown.
The difficulty is the idea of the lockdown area isn't just to walk out of it and do your stuff outside and then go back into it.
Yeah.
To go home. So I think that's where the difficulty comes in with sort of setting up regions of the county and saying these areas can start playing and the others can't. Plus, it takes away any competitive aspect, because you take away a significant number of cricketers from the area.
Yeah.
Sometimes ones who play outside of the area anyway. So even if that club was allowed to play, they might still lose 10 players.
Leagues have been talking about going regionalised, haven't they? They've been talking about, I know the Lancashire League have talked about like having groups of 3. So you're in a group of 3 with your 3 nearest clubs. They might be, 2 miles down the road. You play each team twice. That's 5 games. And then by the time that's happened, lockdown might have eased more and you might be able to go into a sort of playoff position of the winners of each group. I know other leagues are talking about that too.
I think that's what the Northamptonshire League are looking to do: split in half, and play in your half, play each team twice, and then have a sort of finals.
Yeah.
At the end, which it keeps it competitive, doesn't it? I'd rather do that than just play 6 or 7 friendlies.
County boards have been really proactive in some of the stuff they've thought of, and it might have knock-on effects down the line of almost modernisation, or even looking at like playing more T20 or more 40 over rather than 50 over. I don't know what I think it's helping leagues and counties to look at modernising the game going forwards. So it'd be interesting.
Definitely be interesting to see what sort of productive ideas people come out with for the how to get a competition in half a season, and it might allow leagues to look at splitting their season, maybe doing the sort of like you mentioned there, Mark, 50 over one-day cricket style comp at the first half of the season, and then maybe playing the timed cricket or T20s at the back end of the season. So it gives people that.
I heard mooted in the Hertfordshire League was play a 40 over game on a Saturday, so each team once, and then play each team once in a T20 on a Wednesday night, and have like a different point system weighted towards the 40, but things like that. They're just creative, aren't they? Thinking outside the box, and it'd be interesting to see what comes out of it for next year. Because if some of it goes well, then people will go, oh, next year, why don't we carry that on? It doesn't need to just be a COVID thing. It can be cricket going forward.
Because I think the first half of the league season in Northants is 55 overs, win, lose, draw. And then the second half of the season is 50 over, win, lose. But you obviously only play each team once in each format. So I think it's a bit of a half and half position. And like for us, we benefited massively from the win-lose cricket. Sort of suited our style a lot more. So I think we ended up towards the bottom end of the table, because obviously the first half of the season was win, lose, draw.
Suited your style well then.
No, what What I mean, mate, is that if you're gonna play in a format,
you left the door open there.
Because you're not listening.
Left the door ajar, Ben.
If you're going to play in a format, you've got to compete in that format to have a sort of rule, rather than say, right, we're going to do half of it in this format and half of it in another. And I don't know. I think you don't get the opportunity to play home and away in both formats. Whereas if they were to split it in half and put it in groups, you can almost have two competitions in one season, can't you?
Yeah, like you do in county cricket.
Yeah.
There's a solution, gents, isn't there? There is. I think what we're saying here is that to any problem, there's a solution if you're proactive and you think about it. And to be fair to the league, it's an unenviable job, isn't it, having this, because the league, just as they're about to get an announcement out or a format out, things change, and it can't be easy, can it? I mean, I know from a business side, as running the coaching business, that with the regs and rules changing every couple of weeks, the landscape changes. So the league are trying to appease and keep a lot of people happy here, aren't they? Whatever league you're talking about, and I think whatever's decided, there'll be people who are happy, people who aren't. But I think just getting some cricket played. Tim Treadway has messaged and said, if there is a breakaway Rutland League or something similar, would clubs be open to other members from other clubs playing in a match so we get some game time?
That's the point you raised, Ben.
Some of us are keen to get playing again and are frustrated with the inconsistent rules that have been discussed today surrounding cricket, etc. Yeah, again, that's that. I think that's the one of the highlights the issue I was sort of alluding to a little bit earlier, which is, if you just start something, any form of cricket, whilst in this Leicester lockdown, I'm not sure that you can police that in a way that's going to be safe to ensure people aren't playing that shouldn't be. That sounds ridiculous, isn't it? But what's our view on that, chap? Something like that, where those people who are willing to or wanting to play sort of invitational side or something. I don't know.
At Middlesex, we actually had a staff discussion about this week with the county age group players. We were saying the most important thing for them to do is to get some club cricket this season, and we really want to emphasise that the Middlesex players play club cricket.
Yeah.
But then we said we'd look at each individual player's club situation and what their club was able to do, and if they weren't putting much on, could we instigate a loan system so that county age group players could be on loan to clubs that were able to play. So yeah, that's something that's been talked about unofficially at Middlesex, and we'll see where. I don't know whether it's possible. It's possibly not, but it's an idea of a loan system.
It's a really interesting one, isn't it? Because there's still sort of this idea that, don't travel more than what you need to. Don't go where you don't need to. And if people are playing for different clubs and travelling further, I mean, where
in Leicester, you're probably in
stop?
Leicester.
At some point, you've got to move forward, haven't you?
You can't. You're absolutely right when you said earlier. Like, you can't have someone coming from the centre of Leicester to go and play for a club outside of the lockdown zone, because their club in the lockdown zone is not allowed to play.
I guarantee you it would happen as well.
It definitely would happen. Like, because I'm not gonna name names, but we've seen posts on social media from people who are, say, a member of ex cricket club outside of the lockdown zone, and they're opening their bar on Saturday, and the people in question live inside the lockdown zone, and they're like, well, I'm just going to walk 3 miles to the cricket club and go for a beer. And you're like, well, that's not the point.
It's not.
It's definitely not the idea.
It's not the idea.
Just walk out of the lockdown zone.
And there's always going to be people like on the line, aren't there? Like people, when Wales and England are at different stages. If you live on the Wales-England border, like some people work in Wales but live in England or go to school in one. And there's always people that it's a grey area to, and that's where you've just got to use your common sense. And I think you go to
definitely
the strictest common denominator, don't you?
Wherever they put the line, people are going to be next to it.
Yeah.
So you can't just say, oh, well, the line's not very far from me, so therefore it doesn't apply.
Well, it Cummings clause, do what you like.
Interesting, isn't it? Well, look, chaps. Mark, thanks ever so much for your time today. I hope that was enjoyable for you to join us this morning. Guys that have joined in again. Yeah, no, it's great, mate. It's great to discuss cricket, and I hope we've managed to give a balanced viewpoint on everything we've discussed, guys. It's about trying to see the bigger picture, and yes, getting cricket back ASAP, but making sure it's safe to do so in the right way. And I'll just keep urging the cricket community, whether it's guys tuning into this as customers of ours, of interest, of just cricket, cricketers and a general interest in cricket in general. I think that it's important that we all keep pulling in the same direction, guys. Like everyone, we are frustrated that this is taking its toll on cricket and taking what would appear to be longer than it should be doing. But it really needs everyone to keep, those who are listening to this that are involved in Leicestershire cricket in particular, that are inside that lockdown area, just keep doing your bit, guys, please. If we all do our bit, this will get resolved quicker. If everyone takes the viewpoint, it's a bit like an election vote, isn't it? Mine's only one vote, so it doesn't have any difference. But if everyone takes that view, we keep ending up in the mess we're in, and the problem persists. So please, 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 if you do want to get back playing cricket and you do have an interest in local cricket, you want to get the juniors out there at your club, etc., etc., please stick by this regulation and this lockdown rule. Please don't be tempted to visit and go to any other cricket clubs outside of them zones. It's not only is it's not currently advised, it's just not being a good person, in my opinion, and following the rules. So keep sticking to what we're doing, guys. Hang in there, stay safe, and hopefully this time next week, if not the week after, we can start bringing some more of a positive outlook on where cricket's going. But Mark, thanks ever so much for your time and your insights, mate. Really interesting to hear your viewpoints there from schools, clubs, and certainly your Middlesex angle. That's been great. Ben, as ever, thanks for your time, your honest and frank opinions. Really appreciate that. Guys, thanks for joining us today, and hopefully we'll see you again next week, same time, same place. Cheers, fellas.
Cheers, Tom.
Cheers.